Hello and welcome. I'm Ryan Plant. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Contact Center Business Unit. In this webinar, we're going to be talking about the architecture of the Webex Contact Center. So we're going to be going through the high-level architecture of the Webex Contact Center, and we're going to describe how it plays a critical part in the larger customer experience as a service strategy that we have. And I've asked a few of my colleagues to join us in this presentation to give some demonstration as to how we're faring and progressing in this journey so far. A few months ago, we announced the launch of the new Webex Contact Center. We've invested a lot in what we believe is the most modern, most advanced cloud contact center solution out there in the market today. It represents a huge milestone that has been years in the making. At Cisco, we're not new at contact centers. We've been doing this for years. We've been doing it for nearly 2 decades. For years, Cisco has been investing and amassing an arsenal, not only to build contact center solutions in the cloud, but expand that further and further to take on more customer experience opportunities. So when I talk about customer experience as a service or a platform to deliver that, what do I mean? Well, it's a set of 5 core capabilities for next generation customer experience applications to be built upon. The obvious one that we'll start with are the communication and collaboration channels, the mechanisms that allow customers or companies to reach out to their customers and enable them to engage through a variety of different channels. But it goes beyond that. It's not just the customer to agent interaction. It's also facilitating and enabling agents to converse with one another in the context of an interaction with the customer to provide the maximum level of service. Extending past that is what we call orchestration, and we'll get into this much deeper as we go along. But orchestration is really all about taking the interaction and modeling how you want it to work, how you want it to end up, how you want to handle the customer in this case. One of the big things about orchestration is the ability to integrate a wide variety of cloud services or on-premise services, if they exist, that basically serve as systems of record that provide important context that is needed to be able to handle the customer journey appropriately. That's what we mean by orchestration. Now, we made an announcement in December with the intention to acquire IMI Mobile, and that acquisition closed in late February. And IMI Mobile and their technology basically filled the need of these 2 major elements of the platform. Essentially, we'll get into this in more detail, but IMI Mobile represents an enterprise communication platform as a service, and they provide this mechanism for us. Now, of course, all interactions nowadays have some sort of AI involvement to it, whether it's an IVR or whether it's a bot, a conversational agent of some sort that's virtual. It could also come in the form of an agent getting virtual advice or assistance from an AI in terms of what to say, when to say it, and so on and so forth. The point is that AI is literally everywhere within this platform and will be. And so we've been leveraging the technology and the expertise that came from the Voicea acquisition to really bolster some of the support to really provide AI as a first-class component to this broader architecture. And of course, anytime an interaction is handled, it's orchestrated, AI is involved in terms of like an IVR or a bot, there might be the situation where a customer still needs to speak to a human. Now, that's where the contact center comes in, and that's what we're going to talk about mostly in this webinar. Now, one of the things that you probably haven't heard a lot about is this notion of customer profile and journey. This is a very, very important element to this broader platform that we're building. It's a new service, but we've been leveraging the technology and expertise that came from the CloudCherry acquisition in late 2019 to serve as a foundation to build upon this. Now, what this means is that we're building this as part of the platform so that every single part of this platform has the ability to leverage this subsystem to give customer contextual data in terms of events, to be able to collect them, organize them, and be able to trigger actions based on them. And that's where the orchestration element comes into this. But it's a new service that we'll talk about in future webinars. Now, of course, anytime I talk about the word platform, it implies that something needs to be built upon it. And you can't build on a software platform without APIs. So virtually every single subsystem that I talked about today has a commitment to API first delivery, which means that APIs are throughout the entire platform, and every single component and its functionality is going to be exposed through these APIs. So like I said, we just kind of touched the surface on a lot of these. We're going to drill into the contact center one specifically in detail. And so let's start to do that. But the point that I want to summarize here with is that all of the applications that can be built on top of this platform are literally infinite. I mean, it comes everything from customer service, which is pretty obvious, to marketing automation, sales automation, you name it. And that's our intention behind this platform, is to really encourage developers, whether they be partners or customer development shops, to build on this platform. So now let's get into the actual Webex Contact Center architecture. If we were to drill into that one box that said Contact Center, what would it look like? Well, this is it. So for the remainder of this webinar, we're going to be going into this in a lot of detail. Now, about 2.5 years ago, when we set out to rebuild the architecture for the Webex Contact Center, we started asking ourselves and our customers and our partners and even analysts, what are the most essential characteristics of a next generation contact center platform? Well, we came up with 5 high priority ones that I want to talk about and use as a guide for the rest of the presentation. But the first one is that we wanted to make sure that we built this as a true cloud native, multi-cloud platform that could be built upon. And we'll get into that in detail. The second big important item is that we wanted to make sure that it was open and extensible through APIs. And that's what I just talked about. Without these, you can't really build anything on top of it. We also wanted to make sure that it had universal accessibility. Now, I realize that that term accessibility is overloaded. In the context of the contact center in this case, I mean that it has all of the channels available to provide universal access to any customer on any channel and enable agents to be able to interact on any of those channels. The fourth big thing is obviously what we're talking about with AI, but it's not just AI, it's the data that makes AI possible. And it's that same data that helps us deliver advanced reporting and analytic capabilities as part of the platform. And we wanted to make sure that we spent a lot of time building the right one there. And then the last major element is what we talked about as orchestration, the ability to introduce very rich no and low code capabilities into the contact center to help our customers really orchestrate journeys for better handling their customers. So all of these 5 essentials literally map to the architecture, and we're going to be using it as a guide, as I said, to navigate the content for the rest of the webinar. And so what we'll start with the first one, which is talking about how we built this native multi-cloud foundation for the Webex Contact Center. So obviously we should probably define what it means to be cloud native. Now, some of you might have an opinion as to that, but let me explain how we look at it. Well, first, it means that you have to change your approach to the software design. You have to be more microservices based as opposed to monolithic. And that really comes down to designing your software in the smallest, most single purpose manner. And we'll get into why that's an advantage. But the second aspect of being cloud native means that you, through those microservices, have the ability to elastically scale and achieve higher levels of resiliency. With this cloud native paradigm, you should have the ability to be more automated in your deployments and make those deployments not impact any customer experience whatsoever. Of course, you need to know what's going on in the platform at all times. So part of being cloud native is to have very intelligent observability built in throughout so that you can respond to issues and you can proactively do capacity planning so that you're always ensuring that you can bring on more and more customers and take on more and more complex workloads. And last, but certainly not least, is that a cloud native platform has to have fail-safe security in it. It has to stand up to the onslaught that most cloud services deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so that's the foundation of being a trustworthy platform, is this last attribute. So let's go into how we actually went about building this foundation, what we call our cloud runtime. So obviously, many of you, well, maybe not obviously, many of you probably will know a bit about monolithic software design. It's a holdover from a pre-cloud era when the lack of economies of scale and compute required software to be designed as components and deployed logically and physically together. Now, despite being in the cloud era, I would contend that the majority of the cloud services out there are still adhering to a monolithic design. It's not because nobody wants to change it. It's just because that was the path, the least resistance to getting a legacy application or a very stable application running in the cloud, is to lift it and shift it there. So when we started building this new architecture, we wanted to make sure that we're building it in a way that didn't carry over some of these legacy things. So we didn't want to build it as a monolith. So we took the last 2 decades of our expertise in customer experience and delivering contact center solutions, and we took that expertise and basically identified all of the discrete functions that need to be built within to provide a contact center. And we built those as microservices. And so basically, instead of aggregating a lot of things together and deploying it as one holistic unit, we broke it down and ended up with multiple, in fact, over 70 discrete microservices, each with a single purpose, and they all play together to deliver the functionality that is in the Webex Contact Center. And by doing that, adhering to a microservices-based design, we've improved the velocity in which we can develop functionality. We've improved how fast we can test it and how fast we can deploy it. And it turns out that it's a lot easier to manage and maintain once they're smaller units of functionality. So by adopting this microservices architectural style, we've achieved a lot of benefits. But just by simply taking software and designing it as a microservice, packaging it up as a container, which we have, and deploying it, it doesn't give you all the magic that the other attributes of a cloud native application needs to give you. You need a runtime platform that is specifically designed and battle tested for being able to manage all of these little microservices, to provide them the resources that they need, to schedule that time, to be able to monitor them and make sure that the right services have the right capacity at the right time, and to be able to also turn down capacity in areas that aren't being used as much. So what we decided to do is build our foundation, what we call our cloud runtime, on Kubernetes. And Kubernetes has a vast ecosystem of extensions that literally allow all of these cloud native capabilities. Now, if many of you don't know what Kubernetes is, I would encourage you to look it up, but it could be traced back to Google. And if there's a company out there that knows a thing or two about running services at scale and in the cloud, it's Google. And so this Kubernetes infrastructure is one of the largest open source projects out there today. Google's very fiercely behind it. And by leveraging it, we get to leverage all of their hard-won experience. So the neat thing about Kubernetes is it allows you to organize your microservices into logical groupings. They're also known as pods. And you're able to distribute or deploy these pods of microservices across any given data center. It could be a physical colocation data center, sure, as long as Kubernetes is running there. But what I'm talking about more specifically is being able to deploy these microservices on a Kubernetes platform running in a public cloud provider. And by doing that, you can use all of the regions available within a public cloud provider. You can deploy pods in different availability zones across regions. And by doing that, you can increase the amount of availability and throughput that your platform can tolerate. So all of this happens through policy. So for example, you can, through policy, say to Kubernetes, hey, you know what? I want you to monitor the traffic. And I want you to make sure that these services have at least this much capacity so that we don't, cause any sort of performance degradation or issues with the customers using it. And so through that policy, Kubernetes will constantly make sure that those services running have enough computational resources at its disposal. But it's not just that. It's not just that. That same policy can allow you to scale out. So it's one thing to be able to add more memory and more CPU capacity, but it's a completely other thing to be able to add horizontal capacity to it. And that's one of the things that Kubernetes does as well, is all through this policy be able to make enable you to manage that. So when it comes to deployment, we talked about how a cloud native platform needs to be able to support automated deployments, and those deployments need to reduce downtime, if not outright eliminate it. So one of the things that Kubernetes does in its ecosystem is it has an approach to software-defined networking. And that is basically encompassed in a cloud pattern called a service mesh. Now, a service mesh is effectively the ability to network all of these little individual microservices and enable them to communicate with one another, but also the outside world. So Kubernetes provides support for service meshes, and there's a wide variety of different components you can use to deliver upon a service mesh. We have chosen to use Istio, and we've chosen to use Envoy as the mechanism to provide this service mesh. Now, a service mesh really consists of two major things. It's the data plane, which basically represents all of the transmission that's going on inside and outside of the platform. And it's the control plane, which allows configuration and policy to govern how that transmission behaves, what kind of security protocol is being used, what rate limits might be applied, looking at, things like whitelisting and those kinds of elements. So we use Envoy as our data plane and Istio as our control plane. And our configuration and custom extensions to this platform have really enabled us to deploy services with a wide variety of different deployment patterns, all aimed to eliminate downtime and to enable us to deliver rapidly new features without customers really even noticing, other than just the new feature itself. So, for example, a common cloud deployment pattern is called blue-green. And what it does is it allows you to roll out a new version of a service or a complete pod while maintaining the current live customer base in the customer traffic that's using it. And this works because the service mesh has a concept called an ingress controller, which it's like a load balancer, can determine where traffic is directed at any given time. Now, a policy can instruct the ingress controller to direct new traffic to the new version, while existing traffic naturally diminishes on the older version. And what happens is the monitoring of this network traffic determines that when there's no more traffic left, or no more net new traffic on that older system, that you can then start to spin it down, and all of the net new traffic that comes in can be now on the newer version. And this allows you to literally switch from an older version to a newer version without disrupting any customer. And the new customers that come on, or the existing customers that open up a new session or start working with your application, wouldn't know the difference. So what's also nice about this service mesh capability is that it enables us to deliver that security capability that we talked about, that's so essential for cloud native platforms. And the way it's done is basically using an ingress controller like a firewall, like you would a firewall. In this case, it would be like a layer 7 firewall. Now, for us, we're using the open source CuriFence web application firewall technology that integrates directly into Kubernetes through the service mesh. And we're also using a technology called NuVector, which basically does runtime analysis of the container and what's going on in it to ensure that it hasn't been tampered with and that it's not experiencing any sort of an attack or anything like that. So all of this technology that we're using is really helping us to be able to be a truly cloud native platform. But that's not all of it. So I talked about the importance of observability, right? So you have to know what's going on in the platform at any given time. So within our cloud runtime, we've curated the best of breed tools for observability and have configured them to intelligently predict and adjust autonomously while keeping our site reliability engineering team keenly aware of what's going on through proactive alerting and monitoring. So the observability stack, as depicted here, gathers all of the telemetry from all of the microservices and across the platform, and it manages it in a single place so that it can be analyzed in a single place for a variety of reasons. One of those obvious ones is for continuous improvement, to see where there's issues, where there's fault, where there's low resources, and to be able to also, and more importantly, have a single place to go if there's the unfortunate event of an incident. One of the hardest things about incident management is collecting all of the information that you need to troubleshoot when it's distributed all over the place. So with this architecture, we're able to aggregate into a single place all of the telemetry needed so that we can better manage the platform and respond to issues should they arise. Now, another thing about our cloud runtime that I wanted to highlight, it yields another really important benefit that I think is a differentiator for us, because I don't think there is any other CCaaS solution out there in the market that has this ability. And essentially, by running your software as microservices deployed as containers, running those containers on Kubernetes, as we talked about, you become immediately cloud agnostic, which means that you can run this platform in any public cloud provider, or even a private cloud for that matter, as long as there is a supported version of Kubernetes in place and that you have the ability to configure and deploy it, which we do. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, why is multi-cloud really, why does it matter? Well, I think it comes down to having options and having the flexibility to choose. So, there's a lot of reasons, but let's talk about some that I can think of, right? So you could have connectivity restrictions. You might have limitations in terms of where you need to do business, and a specific public cloud provider might not be where you need it to be. There could also be cost pressures that would motivate you to having a multi-cloud strategy where you don't want to be all in one particular provider for cost reasons. There could also be regulatory, legal, or jurisdictional constraints that would govern why you would want to have the choice to determine where you would want to deploy your software. There could be performance requirements. I mean, latency is real, right? If you have no other choice but to deploy your software clear in some distant region where you're far away from where your users are, then they might experience performance challenges, and those might translate into problems. So having the choice of where it's deployed and where your software is deployed is an important factor. But then also there's customer preference, and it's becoming more and more of a requirement. The more I talk to customers, the more they're having an opinion in terms of where they want their contact center to run, and it's because of these reasons. So for Cisco, we made a conscious decision that we didn't want to build a platform that forced any of our customers into one particular cloud provider and all of the limitations that come with that. So to illustrate this a little bit, if you only have a single cloud provider that is available to you, you're going to be limited in terms of where they operate and what services are available in those regions that they operate. But if you start looking at adding other cloud providers to your capability list, meaning that you have these options now, you start seeing even just globally your options increase. You have a lot more to choose from. You have a lot more to be able to manage your business better. And so this is one of the advantages of multi-cloud. And I think it's something that we get as a benefit from this cloud runtime architecture that I've been talking to you about. So this brings us into the second big element of how we wanted to build this new architecture for the Webex Contact Center. And that is, continuing on that theme of choice and flexibility and talking about the importance of openness and extensibility through APIs. It's rare to find enterprises these days relying on any one provider of technology or any one cloud provider, as we just talked about, right? There's vast operational needs. And as businesses accelerate through their digitization journey, they're finding themselves at the mercy of whoever provides their software, and the ability for them to play nice and integrate with other providers out there. Now, that is where APIs come in. APIs are literally the building blocks of digitization. And as customer experience starts to evolve more and more, APIs are going to become more important than ever. And so we knew that, and we wanted to make sure that we were committed to building APIs first and foremost within this new architecture. So let's talk about these points. Open and extensible. It means that you have to have open platform APIs, but then you also have to have extensible user interfaces. And we're going to talk about these in a little bit more detail. So an open platform, what that means is really exposing every bit of functionality through an API. And that way you can invite any developer, whether it's a partner or a customer software development team or an entrepreneur, to build solutions of their own. And they could differentiate, they could add more value, more capability than, let's say, a first party's offerings, or they could completely compete with the first party's offering. So for example, at Cisco, when we deliver the Webex Contact Center, we're developing UI applications. We're developing an agent desktop. We're delivering that to our customers. We're delivering some of these things that we'll talk about in a minute. Having an open platform really levels the playing field, because that way you can say to a partner, hey, build your own desktop. Or a customer, a lot of customers are building their own agent desktops from the ground up. They just want to make sure that they have all of the available APIs to do that without any sort of penalty. And what I've found in a lot of cases, particularly in the CCaaS space, is that the APIs available out there are a subset of really the full functionality available in these CCaaS platforms. And so what that does is limit basically what an ecosystem can build upon. And we wanted to make sure we avoided that first and foremost. So we're committed to making sure all of the functionality in the Webex Contact Center is available through an API. So to illustrate this, I've asked a colleague of mine, Saurabh Jongid, who's a technical lead on the Webex Contact Center, to give us an illustration and a walkthrough of what we're doing with our APIs and what we're building as far as a developer portal and ecosystem around it. So I'll turn the time over to Saurabh to give us that walkthrough.
Saurabh Jongid, a technical lead on the Contact Center business unit, and I'm going to show you a developer portal and walk you through how some of our APIs can be used. What you see on the screen is our Contact Center developer portal. If you are developing with Webex APIs, the authentication model will look the same. However, we wanted to provide a very focused experience for Contact Center developers. First thing I wanted to call to your attention is the Getting Started guide. In it, all the information needed to get going is available, including how to get access token to make API calls. Next, on the left, we have an API reference section, which lists all the currently available APIs. We are releasing new APIs on a regular basis, so this list will expand. Each API is documented in a similar fashion. For example, the Tasks API. Tasks are what we call units of work or demand that requires an agent's attention to resolve. As you can see, we have documented the structure, including the request, and also provided the examples on how certain things will look like. We have also implemented some built-in facilities like sample code and tryout, which gives you an ability to exercise these APIs from within the code. We will be expanding the sample code sections to include more examples from various other programming languages. We'll also be providing SDKs to help you accelerate the development process. In addition to the API reference section, we also have a guides section, which talks about in more detail about a specific topic. For example, using webhooks, which is related to our subscription endpoint. Any third party can essentially come and subscribe for notifications and then have them notified over webhook. And the guide essentially talks in detail about various things like design considerations when you're building a webhook receivers, what a typical webhook structure would look like, what is the typical anatomy of it, And if you do end up not receiving for some reason, then what a few key points to consider. And at the end, there is a sample Node.js app which shows how quickly and easily you can build a receiver. Now, let me walk you through a very common example. As part of Webex Contact Center solution, we can record conversations between an agent and their customers. We call these as captures. Let's suppose we're building a tool or an application that will find and retrieve these captures. It could be for quality management or simply downloading for custom archival or processing. For this, we'll be using our tasks and the captures API. So let me just quickly go over to Postman, a free developer tool for exercising APIs, and show you how to call these two APIs and get the recordings. So what I have here is the two APIs which we talked about, the getTask and the captures API. GetTask API is fairly straightforward. It's a get API and takes an query param called from, which is the date parameter. So when I make this API call to get the list of contexts or tasks available, I get a list of all the available tasks from this within this date range. Now I take this task ID, which is available, and I go to my captures API. And I have the request pre-filled for demo, but you add the new task ID and you make the captures API call, which essentially gives you the recordings. And as you can see, for this task ID, this is the recording. This is where you can use the S3 URL to download the recording and a bunch of metadata associated with it. So that's how simple it is to call our APIs and quickly build a very common or a simple use case like downloading recordings. That's all I had for you. I hope you found this walkthrough useful. We are working hard to expose all of our contact center APIs through this portal and extend its functionality to make it a very joyful experience for developers. I'll turn it back over to Ryan now. Thank you.
During the demonstration, you likely noticed a limited set of APIs. Trust me, we're just getting started. We know that there is a lot more for us to deliver and make available out there. But access is available today if you wanted to get access to the APIs that we currently have. This picture is a representation of the APIs that we have in mind that we're working on, and some of which are actually out there today. So as you can see, we're just starting and we're going to be delivering these more and more in the coming weeks and months. As you can see, the contact center APIs that we've been talking about are just a part of this broader portfolio that we're building out for this customer experience platform. So there's a lot of APIs that we have in mind. There's the AI APIs, there's the journey APIs that we haven't really talked about as much, and there's the communication and orchestration APIs that IMI provides that we'll touch upon a little bit later. But ultimately, this is part of a bigger whole for delivering programmable customer experiences. To tie this back into our platform architecture, when we were talking about our cloud runtime, I wanted to highlight that we're delivering our APIs using the same service mesh capability that we discussed earlier. Most modern architectures out there have what's called an API gateway, which basically is a specialized type of reverse proxy, or in this case, a type of ingress controller that is capable of defining static and dynamic routes that allow API traffic to hit certain services. And it also is responsible for validating things like access tokens and security, measuring usage and enforcing rate limits, etc. So all of these capabilities are very critical for any cloud platform exposing APIs to the public. So it was really important and is important that we do this the right way. So when we talk about having all of these APIs and our vision to make them available to our customers, and then I show you that we only have a subset available today, it's because the process is that we're going through each one of these microservices and making sure that we're able to define the right routes, define the right security model, define the right rate limiting capabilities and circuit breaking capabilities, and make that configurable within the platform so it's compatible, so we can run it holistically and be able to support it 100%. So this brings us to the second point within this section, and that is extensible user interfaces. As part of the Webex Contact Center, Cisco is delivering its own end user applications. We talked about that. That's things like the agent desktop, that's the reporting and analytics tool, that's also the administration tool that we have. Excuse me. But through these open APIs, we want to make sure that we provide the mechanism for a partner to develop their own UI altogether if need be. That could be also a customer's own development staff, which they do. But there's also the circumstance where a customer may want to use our first-party applications like the agent desktop. We wanted to make sure that we provided a means for extensibility to that agent desktop so that you can leverage it, but also customize it and tailor it to your needs. So this isn't a new thing for Cisco. Cisco was a pioneer in delivering what's called Finesse, which is part of the premise-based portfolio, which Finesse was an innovation at the time and still is to this day being used vastly, is that it enabled customers and partners to develop complete customizations to the agent desktop. So that way, Cisco didn't have to deliver all of these capabilities. If there was a gap, a partner could jump in and fill it using this framework, and so could a customer. So we wanted to build on that legacy, but we wanted to do it with newer technology that was more cloud aware. And so we did it on an entirely new stack, and it enables customers, it enables partners to develop all of these individual customizations that we call widgets. And it's all part of this framework that we've built called the Unified User Interface Platform. And it's a series of tools and technology that you can use as a framework to build these widgets upon. And there's literally an unlimited number of ideas or opportunities or capabilities that can be built using this platform. So it's really our intention to provide the implementation of this Unified User Interface Platform across all of our UIs that Cisco delivers to its customers. Right now, we have only gotten to the point where we've implemented that user interface platform in the agent desktop. But in the coming quarters, as we start revisiting, the reporting and analytics tool that we call Analyzer and our admin portal, we're going to start to embed this capability across the board. So that way, any widgets that are built can apply to any UI that we have. So I've asked another colleague named Kevin Hyde to introduce himself and to walk through the agent desktop and its extensibility features and actually show you what's available today for you to actually start building these widgets and getting them deployed into the Webex Contact Center. So I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Kevin Hyde. I'm a user experience front-end developer on the contact center team. And I'm going to show you some real live examples of what we built as part of the new Webex Contact Center. This is our agent desktop. It's built on the extensibility framework Ryan is talking about. It was designed for enabling custom development of content and layouts. So everything you see here was built using the same framework that you can use. We call these areas of content widgets, and I'll show you how to build your own. The WXCC desktop widget is based on a micro front-end approach. It's leveraging the browser's native web component API to allow all of the functionality to be bundled together and accessed via attributes and properties through custom elements. First thing to note, you'll serve your widget as a static resource. So your custom widget should bundle all its static resources, its markup, JavaScript, CSS, in a single JavaScript file while using some bundle library like Webpack or Rollup or Parcel or something to serve it as one file, and then hosted on a CDN. We've provided an open source project that has starter widgets to get you going. The Webex Contact Center widget starter has some sample projects in Angular, Lit Element, and React. as well as example widgets that have already been developed. Refer to the examples in this open source project for guidance on how to make your micro frontends exposed as a single web component. The JavaScript bundle must have a root element as a web component, and the element name should be mentioned inside the desktop layout config. Widgets can be built using any framework of your choice, as long as they're exposed as a web component in the end. This could be Angular elements, showing a custom element when all bundled. You can develop with React and use a tool like Direflow to expose it as a native web component. Or you could use a web component native system like lit element. As an example, I'll show a CRM widget that I built using lit element. I have my widget code here, including the properties I choose to expose. And you can see I even have built some subcomponents to help assist with this micro frontend. When it's consumed with HTML, it shows as a custom element, and you can see how I've added a custom attribute to pass information into my element. However, this index is my entry point that will be bundled and distributed. Once I've finished building my widget and have deployed it to a CDN, I can add it to my team's dashboard layout. Inside the admin portal, I can go to provisioning and desktop layout and see my different configurations. We'll go with the CRM profile widget and edit it. Here I can upload a JSON file that configures the different widgets on the page. Here's an example of a new configuration to add to my CRM. We've got the configuration started, and here I've added a new tab for the CRM widget and a tab panel that holds the information. You can see I've named the component the same name as the custom element that I've developed the widget to have, as well as a script tag that points to the CDN where it's deployed, and a list of properties that I want it to start off with by default. This configuration can then be uploaded and replace the previous configuration. I'll save that. And I'll return to my agent desktop, where I can refresh the page and see my new widget load in the tab panel in the upper right. Now, in addition to the contact history, profile, and profile widgets, I have my new CRM widget brought in through the CDN with all its feature functionality, styles, and everything else that I developed it with. The Webex Contact Center Widget Starter project has a lot of code to get you going, no matter what framework you choose to use. It has a liberal MIT license, so you're free to clone, contribute, or fork as you wish. Of course, contributions to this library are always welcome. If you're interested in learning more, please visit the Webex Contact Center Widget Starter, or see our documentation on the Webex Contact Center Desktop Developer Guide. Thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Now we're at universal accessibility. And again, this is the part of the architecture that's really enabling the communication and collaboration with customers and with between agents handling those customers. So obviously we are firmly in the digital age, and customers nowadays, or consumers I should say, carry with them the most versatile and capable communication device in history. And they want to be able to use it to engage with companies that they do business with. They want to be able to do that just as easily as they communicate and converse with friends and family. Now, obviously, in building this new architecture, we knew we had to build in deep support for communication channels that go beyond the traditional voice channel. The challenge for most of our customers has always been how to rapidly bring in new channels, new capabilities, configure them, manage them, and then roll them out to customers while enabling virtual and human agents to handle those conversations that are happening on those channels. So we've been working on a lot of things to really address those challenges. And so let me talk a little bit about those. I'm finally happy to be able to talk about IMI Mobile and what they bring to the table. The rich communication platform capabilities that they bring and that we are working on integrating into the contact center. Now, IMI is a full-blown enterprise-grade communication platform as a service. It enables customers to rapidly set up, configure, and deploy omni-channel capabilities to their customers and agents. And as we've discussed before, by using the term platform, it implies that something can be built upon it. And that is that IMI offers a full set of APIs that allow for in-app, web, social, app, and just a wide variety of different messaging capabilities, all from within a single API. And that API can be used by customers and partners to integrate these communication and collaboration capabilities inside their applications. And it doesn't have to be like a contact center application. It could be any application that needs to have this visibility into this communication network. And so, in fact, we in the Webex Contact Center have been using that IMI API to actually integrate their technology into the contact center. So to illustrate this and what this looks like and how it's going to work within the contact center, I've asked Rajesh Jungam from the IMI Connect team to walk us through IMI's communication capabilities and how they can be used to fulfill a customer experience use case. So I'll turn it over to Rajesh.
IMI Connect takes a low-code, no-code approach to configuring channels, while insulating your business systems and applications from underlying channel complexities. IMI Connect makes it easy for you to manage and buy international numbers, sender IDs, shortcodes, and keywords from within the platform. Buying and setting up assets is as simple as buying your groceries online. In addition, you can also configure and manage rich messaging channels like Google RCS, set up the business profile, brand theme, all from within a central place. The platform enables bi-directional communication across all channels, including SMS, push, Twitter DM, WeChat, in-app, email, Messenger, Apple Business Chat, WhatsApp, and RCS. Adding communication channels and creating a flow is as simple as dragging and dropping them onto the canvas and doing some simple configuration steps from within the canvas. It's easy to ensure a pixel perfect messaging experience by trying different formatting and style options with experience preview before even sending. The platform allows creation and management of dynamic templates with header, footer, media, and other channel specific features, and use them within the flow or messaging APIs. These templates can then be updated by non-technical users without requiring any code changes. Developers also get access to full-featured capabilities for every channel and are able to configure intelligent IVRs, chatbots, quick replies, buttons, wallets, and more. There are also other inbuilt smart tools like geofences and trackable short URLs to apply context and understand customer behavior. Developers can also use the multi-channel API, a single flexible REST interface to integrate any channel in any application or business process. They can enable businesses to reach customers globally with reliable and fast international SMS and voice routes, while Connect handles underlying routing complexities. They can get access to enterprise grade email infrastructure, and they can also seamlessly and easily add Facebook Messenger, Twitter DM, and other messaging apps to their communication mix. They will be able to quickly incorporate push and in-app messaging into their mobile apps and websites using our SDKs for Android, iOS, and web apps. We also provide a Cordova plugin for hybrid apps. In addition to channel access, the platform allows for automation and orchestration of powerful customer journeys. You can easily design workflows that touch internal business systems and also offer a seamless pathway into your customer contact center for additional agent support. IMI Connect and Cisco Webex Contact Center combined to provide a single integrated customer experience platform to create connected journeys. By combining IMI Mobile with the all-new Webex Contact Center, we are creating a robust customer experience as a service platform, bringing together existing and new technology like artificial intelligence, omnichannel capabilities, and programmability for customization.
There can be no question that one of the technologies that has the most potential to really disrupt customer experience and enhance it in amazing ways is artificial intelligence. But the key ingredient to making artificial intelligence viable and all of the machine learning algorithms behind that notion of artificial intelligence is to be able to deliver a data platform that can store and manage all of this. Our biggest focus for the Webex Contact Center platform has been to build out a very good data platform, and one that can basically take control of all of the data that's passing through a contact center at any given time. It needs to be able to collect it, it needs to be able to store it and manage it, and it needs to do so securely. And it needs to do so for a wide variety of applications, not just AI like we initially started with. It's also for reporting and analytics. It's also for experience management, being able to do analysis on what the customer is experiencing and how they feel about it, and use that information to be able to predict next actions or things that can be done to improve that journey. So what we've been doing is building out these capabilities within this platform that allow for native stream-based processing of data. That means that events are always coming into this data platform. They could be call recording events. They could be new tasks, new communication events that are happening from the channel stack that we talked about. They could be any sort of event from agents, like an agent switching, their status. It could be anything. It could even be external data. All of this can come in and be collected and processed in real time, in stream, and stored within a secure environment. And what we do with this is we expose data APIs that really enable applications to be built upon it, to be able to do these things like AI, to be able to do experience management, but then the obvious one is the reporting and analytics, which we use this very API to build our tool that we call Analyzer. So when this data comes in and it's collected, it could be all of these real-time events. We make that available through these APIs. And for example, the AI subsystem takes this data and they use it to be able to train models from it. And from that, they can create virtual agents, they can create agent assistants, they can create transcripts, they can create sentiment scores, they can do a wide variety of these things. And it's all drawing from this data platform. From an experience management standpoint, they get the data that we're collecting and they use it to determine that next best action, as I mentioned. And then, of course, from a reporting and analytics standpoint, it can be used to create dashboards, reports, and threshold alerts, and all of that sort of thing. In this last section, we're going to cover orchestration and what it means and why it's so critical in this architecture. It happens to be the area that I'm probably the most excited about because I think it delivers upon a promise that is really going to enable a whole new class of customer experience applications to be built. So let's talk a little bit about what orchestration really is, or at least what we think of it as. So as enterprises adopt cloud services and digitize their operations and increasingly leverage AI, it is critical that we deliver the ability for any authorized user in the system to be able to rapidly integrate, manage, and orchestrate all of the various activities and processes that are happening within their enterprise. So it's not just the customer experience interactions, although that is the biggest focus, at least in the contact center's implementation of orchestration, but it can be much bigger than that, which we'll see shortly. So by this, enabling any user to be able to devise these sorts of processes and do this automation, I'm talking about a low and no code experience for designing how they want things to be done, how the automation needs to happen, and being able to use that same tool set to be able to troubleshoot and deploy those new automated workflows. So we call all of this orchestration because it really enables everyday business users to be composers of simple or complex scores of flows that describe a series of steps and actions that together provide a cohesive business outcome, and all without the real need for, employing, expensive resources around developing code. So the basic concept of orchestration can be illustrated as follows. So the API interfaces that we have built in to the contact center platform basically have a variety of event sources that can trigger them. So we expose real-time push-based events into this workflow execution environment. And these events are modeled as simple event triggers that can be handled by configurable actions. Now, actions can connect with other actions to form a cohesive flow that can execute an automated process for handling matters related to the contact center, such as digital message handling or phone interactions that come in from a call that's being made, or it could be a wide variety of different actions that could be taken. It could be used for modeling and orchestrating how you want a virtual agent to handle the interaction. This is where like an IVR flow comes in, or a bot flow that comes in, or it could also be interacting with external systems and pulling information from CRMs or ERPs, or those line of business systems that we talked about is so important from an API standpoint. So the applications of this are of this event-driven paradigm, where events come in and actions can be correlated with those events and form a whole flow of automated activities. The applications that can be built on that are endless. And especially when you start considering the role that AI can play, all of these events being stored in the data platform that we talked about, and having AI being able to look and find patterns on those events through machine learning, and being able to say that based upon this flow, if this flow were to change this way, we can improve the outcome by X, Y, or Z. All of that is possible through this orchestration mechanism. So we built the contact center platform and its new architecture with an orchestration engine we call Workflow, and a UI for creating and managing these orchestrations, and we called that Flow Designer. So when we set out to build this, it was a multi-year roadmap, and it was all with the vision to make Flow Control and its designer the best contact center orchestration solution available. So we launched this capability in December, and it had the ability to use this flow control mechanism to model voice-oriented flows and interactions, and managing self-service capabilities such as IVRs. However, in February, we closed on the acquisition of IMI Mobile, and with that, we inherited their vast portfolio of communication and interaction management capabilities. The centerpiece of their platform is called IMI Connect, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. We're going to see it in a lot more detail. Now, since that acquisition, and even before that acquisition, we've been working on integrating it into the architecture to serve as the foundation for all things customer engagement, orchestration, and automation. And IMI allows us to accelerate that initial roadmap that we set off with flow control. It allows us to maintain that vision and accelerate on that vision with their assets because of the vast amount of functionality that it has. And so to provide an example of a holistic use case and to demonstrate how IMI Connect can be used to deliver better customer experiences with this notion of orchestration inside the Webex Contact Center, I'm going to turn the time over to Rajesh again, and he's going to walk us through some of these scenarios.
Let's see a demo of how proactive context-aware customer experiences are created with the customer experience as a service technology. Here, we have taken an example from the banking sector. Imagine your customers have spent hours selecting a product, and when they proceed to checkout, their credit card is declined. Such situations make your customers anxious, and they start reaching your contact center. Except this time, it is a little different. Even before the customer picks his phone to reach the contact center, they receive a notification on their phone reminding them that a recent high-value transaction has maxed out their credit limit, and offering them the option to increase it to complete the purchase. Relieved, they respond in the affirmative, and seamlessly and automatically their credit limit is increased and their purchase completed. Simple, painless, and reassuring to your customers. Now let's look at how this connected customer journey is configured. What you are seeing here on the screen is the use case built on IMI Connect's low code, no code drag and drop visual flow builder. When the customer's credit limit goes low, the flow gets triggered, and the flow then fetches the customer's credit usage details by integrating with the bank systems. A lot of these system integrations are shipped out of the box in IMI Connect, but users of the platform are also able to configure their own integrations. And once configured, these can be reused across different use cases and different journeys. The flow then fetches the credit limit and the available limit and does a comparison between the two. At this point, if the customer's available credit limit is below 10%, we want to go and check if the customer is eligible for a credit limit increase. This can be achieved by integrating with an offer management system or a decisioning system like Pega. If the customer is eligible for an increase, the customer is contacted over SMS or any other digital channel. The customer is not only presented with the transaction alert, but they are also given an option to apply for a credit limit increase. The customer replies with a yes, and the credit limit increase is processed. The flow then sends a confirmation message to the customer. In case the customer had additional questions, they are handled by the bot, which acts as the first point of contact. The bot understands the intent and intelligently picks the right responses from the knowledge base to respond to the customer. If the bot encounters a complex question or an agent handover intent, the bot seamlessly transfers the conversation to a live agent with all the historical details. The live agent can then pick up the chat on his multi-channel inbox and he can start interacting with the customer. The agents will have access to the customer profile and the complete interaction history to engage in a contextual conversation. They can share rich media content, attachments, files, and also can trigger fulfillment journeys. Suppose the agent closes the conversation, a survey is automatically deployed, and that is the end of what we call a connected customer journey. In addition, the low-code bot builder enables you to easily create and deploy bots. Things like importing an existing knowledge base and turning that into an FAQ bot, creating task bots that identify different utterances and map those utterances to different intents and fulfill the intents. All of this can be done with the easy to use configurable bot builder, which is an integral part of IMI Connect. The platform also includes a rich set of reporting dashboard, regulatory compliance capabilities, security features, and all the capabilities that are required to use the platform at scale for managing millions and millions of customer interaction.
So to conclude, I want to go full circle and flash this picture back up on there to conclude on the orchestration concept. And that is that IMI Connect is basically that nucleus of this platform that we're building. It is the ability to bring in all of these different types of communication and collaboration channels and events, the systems of record from cloud services, bring them all to bear to be able to deliver better customer experiences. And so in the coming quarters, you can expect to see us converging flow control and IMI Connect into a holistic orchestration solution that will be the only solution for which we will deliver orchestration going forward in the Webex Contact Center. So this brings us full circle. So we've covered a lot, and I hope you can take away a good understanding of the Webex Contact Center architecture, but also how it fits into a larger picture. Now, we've gone through all of the pieces of the architecture and aligned them to these principles that have guided us in these last several years of being able to build the most advanced cloud contact center solution on the market. And we're really proud about what we've done, and we would love to hear from you. We'd love to have more interaction with you. And if you're interested in learning more, please reach out, and we'll see you in future webinars where we can talk about this in much more detail and some of the other elements of the platform. Thank you.
Challenge between them, and it was if you raise X amount, you'll shave your head and you'll go bald. And now they're the second largest private funder of children's cancer research in the United States. It pulls at your heartstrings and it gives us purpose. I would love Cisco employees to join me. I would love to have more bald heads on campus and on our Webex calls. My sister, I think she's proud. I think she's up in the stars and smiling down and just proud as heck that we've all kind of come together, and this is her legacy.
Between a family's loss and the fight for a cure, there's Casey Szymanski.
If we're to build a bridge to an inclusive future, then getting healthcare to everyone, everywhere is critical. Take rural Europe, where local doctors leaving for big cities is creating a medical desert. For patients left behind, many lack the mobility or the flexibility to reach critical urban appointments. The remedy, it turns out, is as much a technological marvel as it is a medical one. Meet Medibus, a state-of-the-art clinic on 4 wheels. But designing such a wonder came with its own set of challenges, taking everything Cisco knows about mobility, connectivity, video conferencing, and security into account, and, together with partner Deutsche Bahn, dispatching it from the cloud to create a 21st century lifeline. Now, no area is too remote, no diagnosis or specialist unavailable. All because one company dared to wonder if the road to better healthcare could literally be the road that runs through town. That's the inclusive future. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the marriage between Rebecca and Cameron. In the presence of this company, it gives me great pleasure to declare you are now legally husband and wife. Cameron, you may now kiss the bride.
Between being there and being together, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
There's a world where every one of us is connected. Everyone. Everywhere. Where everyone is included. Where everyone has access to information, education, opportunity.
There's so much out there. I'm going.
There's a world where buildings are smarter, where automation fuels productivity. And our planet's health is as important as our own. There's a world where everyone is invited to participate, to contribute, to be bold. When everyone and everything is connected,
that's really beautiful.
Anything is possible.
Good morning.
Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Hey, it's good to see you.
I know, right? Finally. Loving those shoes. Late for my meeting. Morning.
Hey, how are you?
Let me show you. Q3 numbers are suggested.
Tracer, best player.
I'm still on my lunch.
Good morning, Mrs.
The company we've trusted to keep us working remotely is the same company we'll trust to bring us back together. Back safely, with features like density monitoring to keep everyone properly distanced. Back securely, with more resilient, more robust protection to block threats faster.
Webex, start the meeting.
And back responsibly, with touchless technology that connects everyone. So now, between a year of being apart and the joy of coming back together, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Okay, everyone, let's get started.
Growing up, I always wanted to be helpful. I was inspired by my mother and how she helped my community. my mom would cook a lot of Syrian food. One day, she asked my brother and me to deliver meals to our neighbors in need. She taught me that when you help others, anything is possible. Even leaving my country to pursue a degree. When I landed, I was shocked to see the level of poverty. I thought, how could such a wealthy country waste so much food when so many people are worried about their next meal? I heard my mother in my ear, and I knew what I needed to do. I started taking surplus food that would otherwise be thrown away and giving it to those who would benefit from it. I could see the tremendous impact right away. I recruited some smart students, and with Cisco's help, we were able to build an automated platform to connect food donors to communities with food insecurity. Not only are we putting good food to use, but also can track the positive impact on the environment. With sharing Cisco's purpose to power an inclusive future, we've been able to provide over 2 million meals across the US. My mother is my real hero. She taught me that a delivery so small could one day deliver on something so much bigger.
Between a small gesture and a huge impact, there's a bridge.
My name is Webex Iqbal. This is my 13th year working at Cisco. I have the honor of leading the systems engineering team based out of Canada, but I was born in Karachi. Then I moved to Canada in 2000. Then I started engaging myself within my own community, which is the Canadians of Pakistani origin community. This is where I met with Daniel Mark. That was very moving for me. He's the French Canadian who moved to Pakistan about 30 years ago to serve the deaf community. These kids, even their cousins, people around them, they won't talk to them because they think that they don't understand, they cannot connect with anything. So then I started using my influence in my community to get this story out. We were able to raise 200,000 Canadian dollars to support these children. Now when the kids are going to deaf reach school, they're learning the sign language, they have more understanding of the world, they know how to use technology. So far we have placed 8,000 people to different workplaces. If you start doing something small within your own community, the easiest thing is look around you who is in need. Once you take the first step, believe me, you will see that one door will open another door, and then there's so much that you can do that you will never stop yourself, that you're not just living life for yourself, you gotta always think beyond yourself.
Between a life in silence and one full of opportunity, there's Webex Iqbal.
Greatness accepts no lag, no delay, no excuses. It lives in the tiny space between milliseconds and nanoseconds, between memes and legends, between tears and tears. And when margins that small make an impact this big, nothing less than the speed and dependability of the Cisco network will do.
My name is Casey Szymanski, and I am a content editor for our talent brand team. In 2004, my younger sister Kelly passed away unexpectedly. Obviously, it was a very difficult time for me and my family, but we came together, we realized we wanted to give back. I think what makes me want to take action is a big part of my upbringing. I think a lot of that comes from being a first responder family, and when others are running out to safety, my family was always running in. In 2011, St. Baldrick's found me. The St. Baldrick's Foundation started with a bunch of first responders, and it kind of became a challenge between them, and it was if you raise X amount, you'll shave your head and you'll go bald. And now they're the second largest private funder of children's cancer research in the United States. It pulls at your heartstrings and it gives us purpose. I would love Cisco employees to join me. I would love to have more bald heads on campus and on our WebEx calls. My sister, I think she's proud. I think she's up in the stars and smiling down and just proud as heck that we've all kind of come together, and this is her legacy.
Between a family's loss and the fight for a cure, there's Casey Szymanski.
If we're to build a bridge to an inclusive future, then getting healthcare to everyone, everywhere is critical. Take rural Europe, where local doctors leaving for big cities is creating a medical desert. For patients left behind, many lack the mobility or the flexibility to reach critical urban appointments. The remedy, it turns out, is as much a technological marvel as it is a medical one. Meet Medibus, a state-of-the-art clinic on 4 wheels. But designing such a wonder came with its own set of challenges, taking everything Cisco knows about mobility, connectivity, video conferencing, and security into account, and, together with partner Deutsche Bahn, dispatching it from the cloud to create a 21st century lifeline. Now, no area is too remote, no diagnosis or specialist unavailable. All because one company dared to wonder if the road to better healthcare could literally be the road that runs through town. That's the inclusive future. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the marriage between Rebecca and Cameron. In the presence of this company, it gives me great pleasure to declare you're now legally husband and wife. Cameron, you may now kiss the bride.
Between being there and being together, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
There's a world where every one of us is connected. Everyone. Everywhere. Where everyone is included. Where everyone has access to information, education, opportunity.
There's so much out there. I'm going.
There's a world where buildings are smarter, where automation fuels productivity. And our planet's health is as important as our own. There's a world where everyone is invited to participate, to contribute.